room, peace to this room. I pray this evening that this would be a place where, the future of Bountiful, ideas that happen in this room tonight would flourish and would become just great things for the future of our city. I pray a special prayer tonight for the people who are in our city that maybe are suffering in some way. In our city, there's all kinds of people going through all kinds of different things tonight, and so for those who are struggling to maybe pay their rent or keep the heat on, for those who are struggling to feed their kids, I pray tonight that just our community, our neighbors, our friends that surround us would rally around one another, and that just be a place that's known for caring for those around them, caring for each other. And so would you help us? Would you help us to look here and say, man, how can we create a community that loves each other well and spurs one another on? I pray that you'd bless tonight, bless the men and women in this room, bless their time. I pray these things in your name. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Pastor Josh. We now have a public comment period of time, and it's up to 10 minutes. And we ask those who have a comment if they would not take more than 2 minutes. And you're welcome to just come up and give your name and where you live. And you'll see our little dial right here. That'll kind of keep you attuned to the amount of time that you're taking. But we're glad to hear from you, and we'll start that comment period right now. Okay, I almost thought Brian Humphreys wanted to say something up there today, but thanks for all of you being here, and we'll move forward from the comment period and ask for approval of minutes of our previous meeting, February 8th, 9th, and 27th, 2018.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we approve those minutes.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and those are approved. And we'll do the Youth Council report.
Great.
Thanks, Kendallin.
Yes, thank you. So we have two great members of our Youth Council. If you would come up, this is Emily Theobald and Olivia Harrison, and they're going to report to us about what's been going on with the Youth Council.
So for our activity on Saturday, we had a little bunny hop, and we had around 200 kids come at 10 a.m. at the Bountiful Park near the rec center, and we all wore our shirts, and we had some activities, and the weather was really cold and windy.
The activities that we had for the kids were fun, which we split up according to age groups, kind of leveled the playing field a little bit. We had face painting, cookie decorating, a sack race, a beanbag toss, and a fish pond. I think the kids really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I had grandchildren that went to that. They loved it. Thank you.
Great. Can I ask, I know Olivia tickets, and you helped sell tickets, right? Mm-hmm. And then, Emily, I saw you there, but what were you doing specifically?
I was helping with the cookie decorating.
How did that go?
That went good.
Was there a lot of kids that did that? Well, these two ladies have been awesome members. They're very active. They help us a lot. Thank you both so much for coming and reporting tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have council reports, so we'll just stay right down there with you, Kendallin.
I don't have anything to report, thanks.
And Chris.
Mayor, I have nothing to report.
And Beth.
I don't have anything this week either, thank you.
Okay. John Mark.
It just feels good to be back in City Council again.
Yes.
It feels like it's been a long time.
It feels like it has really been a long time. This council went, most of us went back to Washington, D.C. to the National League of Cities, and this is a one time yearly that we get together and they teach us about our city and about our responsibilities. Yeah,
it really makes you appreciate the Bountiful.
It sure does.
because everybody else seems to be having many more problems than we are.
It's true. Thanks, and Richard.
Nothing this evening. Thanks,
Okay,
Mr. Mayor.
thank you. I'll ask for a motion concerning weekly expenditure of greater than $1,000 that were paid February 9th, 19th, and 26th, and March 5th and 12th, 2018, and also our January 2018 financial report. Is there any discussion about that? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll be happy to make a motion that we approve all of those as printed.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Now, we're going to hear from Richard Watson, Bountiful Community Service Council. Anything anybody has anything to say on his way up here?
Thanks to Richard and the Service Council for what they do.
Well, before we get on the concerts, I did notice that you mentioned Bountiful Community Service Council, so I'll give a little report on that.
Okay.
We have a couple of projects. We have 2 new volunteers on our council, and they're stepping right up, and they have some projects they want to do later. So we're excited, and we'll fill you in when we get more of that information. But anyway, right now we have, as we speak, Rob Hunter, who's on our council. He's over the emergency council for Bountiful. They have an earthquake seminar right now at South Davis Junior High, and those things are always well attended. So Rob's doing a great job. And then Casey Bowen is in charge of our emergency preparedness fair, and that will be in September. This year, the new location is going to be at the Centerville Legacy Theater. So it's going to be interesting to see how we pull that off. But anyway, so we got those things lined up. And then our council, of course, is made up of other people. One in particular is Wendell Watts, a coordinator for all the other churches within Bountiful, and he's also part of the food pantry as well as I, and we're a part of a faith-based organization. So it's great having him involved with us. In fact, I'll get to him. He was one of the suggestions that he made for one of our gigs for the summer concerts. And I think that's all I got about Bountiful. Oh, before I get to so that's enough about the council, but Jane Joy wanted me to mention that the chalk art is coming up May 16th through 19th. And then she also has at her studio open mic every Saturday night. And the next one is this coming Saturday at 8 o'clock. And those are for people who just want to play an instrument, sing a song, whether they're talented or not. It's just a fun night. So.
What did you say, Saturdays at 8?
Saturdays at 8. So that leads me into, on our schedule, our first concert is Bountiful's Got Talent. And we have auditions already set up for May 10th, 12th, and 17th. And if you know anybody that has a talent and would like to participate in our show, great. We're always looking for more entries, and it's always a fun night when the winner gets to be photo op with a big check in front of them. So it's a fun night.
Richard, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
How are we publicizing this out to our youth and our young adults and those that want to participate in it?
Well, over the years, most of our participants have been from open mic. But we do, last couple of years, we have been trying to reach out to the junior highs and high school. But somehow, when we leave the message at the office, it doesn't seem to get to the band teachers or the drama teachers. So if you know any of the teachers, put the word out. Or if anybody, scouts even, you have talent, we'd love to have you. So it doesn't have to be music. It can be magic, comedy, dance, all that. So anyway, any other questions about?
Well, Mayor, would that be appropriate to have in our newsletter that goes out?
It's already in.
It's in there?
Yeah, I was going to say yes, absolutely.
I'm guessing you've given the information to Shauna, so she the city social media to get the word out, maybe?
I haven't checked to see if it was on the calendar, but
Okay.
we did have it in the news last one.
Great.
So, and then we'll have the concert schedule in for the next newsletter. So.
And Richard, just one thing, since
Yeah.
we are actually, since people can actually tune in and view this online, why don't you tell us a little bit about like what your Facebook page is or any other that the concert people use?
We do have a Facebook page. It's Music in the Park, Bountiful Music in the Park, sorry. And so I put that page up a few years ago. Only since last year, we've been getting like 20 to 30 hits almost daily now. So a lot of people are looking at it now. And so that means we're getting people from outside of Bountiful interested in our concerts, which, by the way, we have at least a couple of dozen bands that were interested in playing besides the one that we were recruiting. And let me tell you, it's getting harder and harder to say no to some of these people. But it's a good problem to have. So, but anyway, I think we're going to have a great schedule, a great summer concert series this year. And some of these bands are really, really good. And one of our sponsors Mike Murphy was able to get Michael McLean and John Batdorf. They were here about 3-4 years ago, and they drew a big crowd, so we expect the same. Although I think as more and more people hear about these, every concert's going to be crowded now. And so we're glad that people love to come to our park and enjoy the music. So I do have one complaint. I'm sorry, and I know it's I only wish that we could have the food trucks over at the park, because people have a hard time doing both. So I just thought I'd throw that out, so maybe next year. So.
Thanks for the... Thanks.
So I do get comments about that. That's how come I mentioned that right now. So for those people who want to do both, they're telling me it's hard to do. So. And then our sponsors, these guys are awesome. These businesses are the ones that help keep these concerts free, because they give us some revenue to work with. And we picked up a new sponsor, Lee's Marketplace from Foxborough, a great organization. I've known them for about years now, so it's great to have them on board. And then, of course, these bands were scheduled not just by me, other people involved scheduling this, as well, like Mike Murphy and Wendell Wild has on August 3rd an evening of praise bands. These are an interfaith. Other churches have some talented bands within their congregation. They'll be playing that night. So, but I do want to thank not just the sponsors, and it's just me that puts these concerts on. There's other people involved, but I especially really want to thank the city council for supporting us. Without your support, we wouldn't be able to do this. So I thank you for letting me put out the schedule. And if any schedule, I'll put some on the chair over there for everybody else. Any other questions?
Richard, yeah. So tell us who else is on your committee besides you.
Well, we have a new one, and he's sitting right there.
Chris.
Yeah, and we're happy to have him. He's going to be great. And then we have Brad Johnson, who's over the council, although he's looking to step down, so we might have a new chair of our council. We have, let me see.
Brad has been the behind-the-scenes go-to guy for such a long time. I mean,
yes, he does all our signs.
He really, I think he was with us like from the second year on, right? Yeah. He's done a phenomenal job.
He and I have been...
no one knows who he is, and he deserves accolades.
Well, I'll give a plug for business. It's Sign Express, who's on the bottom here. He's on 2nd West, just a couple of doors down from Smoke and Bones. So
yeah,
that's his shop. So he does a great Let's see, who else is on? Wendell is on there. Burnell Loveridge, he's been on since I think when Richard was on there.
Yeah,
so
before.
He's been on there for a long time. And then let's see, Gary Johnson, who's my neighbor. He's does radio, ham radio for the emergency council, and he also teaches ham radio to. They put out notices amongst around the area, and so he teaches that. And then there's Gary Davis, who also does amateur radio. There's Casey Bowen, I mentioned, Rob Hunter, and our two new ones is Clint Black? No, Clint Halliday. There we go. To have him, he's already starting on a project, so that's great having him as one of our new council members.
And he's newer to the city, and he just jumped right in. That's fantastic.
He jumped right in. And Brian Potts, who's been assisting me with the concerts, and so we're happy to have him. He lives just right downtown, not too far from Main Street, so and that's pretty much it. So if anybody wants to come to these meetings and be a part of it, you don't have to come to every meeting, but we're on the second Saturday of every month, 8 o'clock at the Bun Basket, and we meet there and for less than an hour. We never go over an hour. So, and then if you go, Chris will buy us all sweet rolls, and just kidding.
Oh, by the way, you just got volunteered.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, very
awesome.
good.
It's a good way to welcome him to the committee.
I also want to, the best of Davis, from the greatest newspaper west of the Mississippi. Wait, Tom's here, isn't he? The best of Davis, if you noticed, on the concert venue and event festival, we made our concerts in the park made the top 3. So people are concerts, so that's great.
Excellent.
Nicely done, Richard.
And Richard, thanks for all you do.
Okay.
And he just has a smile, and I don't think you
these
get a
are
lot
so
of
much
dollars
fun.
for
They
this,
keep
do you?
getting
You're not
more-
dialing for dollars here.
Yeah, they're more fun every year, and I'm excited for this year. So
Thanks, Richard.
I do have a question, actually.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
About the Emergency Preparedness Fair in September. Is that going to be South Davis, or is it Bountiful City?
It's because the South Davis Metro Fire Department is involved, so we include all the cities here. So Centerville, West Bountiful, Woods Cross, North Salt Lake, and Bountiful. So
Perfect. Thank you.
so, and then Lieutenant Edwards, and I think Paul Child will be assisting Casey on this fair. So
Oh, that's fantastic.
okay, thanks.
Thanks, Richard. We appreciate you. Speaking of volunteers, if you would please stand up, April. April is being appointed with the Bountiful Historic Preservation Commission. And we appreciate you so much and your volunteering to do this, and I would seek a motion to have her approved on that commission.
I'd be happy to make that motion.
Thank you, Richard.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. You'll get contacted here fairly soon, April, and there'll be a meeting. Both Richard and I are also on there with Sandy and a few others. Okay. Thank you. And we'll turn some time over to Lloyd.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Grateful to have the opportunity tonight to talk to you about the contract for the general contractor, construction manager for the contract. When we met back in February at the council retreat, we just started the process of putting out a proposal to the contracting community for those who are interested in helping us build the plaza. We got 4 responses to that effort, and down in your memo you'll see that Hogan, Hughes, Paulson, and Valley Design responded, to that. The committee of myself, Paul, Chad, and Brock Hill met after evaluating the proposals that were submitted and before looking at the fees that were submitted. We always make that a practice to evaluate everyone's qualifications first, and then we look at the price so that those are separate. But it was pretty much unanimous across the board that we felt like Hogan came with the best set of qualifications. And I think I can speak for the rest of the committee in saying that one of the great things listed was their involvement in a very large recreational facility in the south end of the Salt Lake Valley. It was about a 40-acre project. It had ball fields, has a big water feature. You know, it was really a complicated project, but it had similarities to the plaza. As we looked at the fees, fortunately for us, the fees confirmed our feelings about Hogan. Since this is a cost-constrained project, and that's one of the advantages of using the CMGC model, is that we're able to get good estimates as we develop the final plans. That Hogan represented a value not only in their experience, but also in what they were willing to do to help us out in the fees. So you can see that there was a pretty broad range of fees, and as we that across the time period that the construction should take, that 10 months, it really became apparent where the real value was. So it's our recommendation that the council accept Hogan's proposal for the CMGC services, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have some.
If there are no questions, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we grant approval for the proposal from Hogan Construction for the construction manager / general contractor services for the Downtown Plaza project in the amount of $263,000.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Approved. And you have another item, Lloyd.
I do, thank you. If I could just make one comment about the plaza. On April 10th, we'll be another contract to you for the design services for the landscape architect and their team that they've assembled to actually do the design work. And we'll have the revised plan that you saw and selected at the retreat with the changes that have been requested for you to review at that time. So things are moving along, and we hope that they'll continue to move quickly with the design of the plaza.
With the hiring of the designer, could I jump in real quick?
Sure, absolutely.
With the hiring of the designers, will the public be involved in any further input on amenities? Or has that happened as much as it will already?
We will keep the public informed as to where the final design ends up. I believe that the next public involvement will be to have kind of an unveiling of the final design based on the comments that we received from the council. We had quite an extensive input process on this. In fact, it was like twice.
Gary, you want to clarify anything there?
Nope, we can do that differently if you'd like us to. It's not in the scope of the contract and would probably delay the timeline. Mm-hmm. Some of our decision on that was based on the fact that we weren't hearing anything new from residents. And we felt like what was left was really about the location of those as opposed to what was going to be there. And so we just didn't feel like there was a lot of added value for going back out for public comment again.
Perfect. But just to be clear, the ideas for amenities in the plaza were solicited from the public on numerous occasions.
Yeah.
And those have been put in the hopper, and that's what the foundation of this process will be.
That's right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Richard. And I think we used Qualtrics on this project did we?
We did.
Extensively, so,
Mhm.
so our input from the public was pretty extensive, really.
Yeah, we feel the turnout that we've had, especially through Qualtrics and the last couple of outreaches that we've done. So yeah.
Okay.
You may remember that Whitney Ward from BCBO was really impressed with the amount of response we got from the online survey. And I think the responses are like in 140 or 150 page document. So, and that's available for people to look at too.
Thank you. That was a good reminder.
Our next item is the contract for our not quite annual contract for concrete replacement, curb gutter, sidewalk, storm drain facilities. We bring this to you about every 3 years because the contract has an extension clause in it. This particular contract involves completing repairs for departments in the city, like the water department or the power department, as they go around and maybe have to remove curb gutter or sidewalk and need that replaced. It also is to fix the inlet boxes and some minor storm drain problems that we have throughout the city that come up. We also do concrete pavement panel replacement and repairs with this contract. We received 5 proposals from various contractors. Most of those were new to us, with the exception, well, I take that back. JMR and Associated Brigham and Leon Polson have all bid on this before. But JMR has been awarded this contract as recently as 2015, and we've extended their contract twice since then. So, you know, they're the most recent person who's been awarded that contract. Over the course of the last 3 years, prices have continued to increase, and so with their extension, we have seen an increase to contract prices between 5 and 6% every year. This year, in just doing a rough comparison to the 2015, or well, excuse me, the 2017 pricing, it looks like things are generally up about 5 to 6% as to what effect it would have for, say, your average homeowner who wants to replace a double driveway, drive approach type situation. But these prices are still well within, you know, market conditions. They're not a surprise. I would point out that JMR is a local hometown contractor, and from the staff, we appreciate very much the opportunity we've had to work with them over the years and the great job that they've done. Recommendation is that the council accept JMR's proposal at the unit prices listed in their proposal, because these are not specifically to specific projects. These are unit prices that are applied throughout the year to whatever projects they're assigned. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
One question, Lloyd, the contract for those who are grinding the edges of cement that comes up, that's separate from this, is that correct?
It is. That's the
Okay.
trip removal.
Yeah,
hazard.
okay. Thank you. If not, if there aren't any other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Be happy to make a motion that we approve the contract with JMR Construction for the concrete replacement program at the unit prices that are listed.
Thanks, Richard.
Second.
Thanks, Beth. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion passes. Thanks, Lloyd.
Thank you.
We always appreciate you. And we'll turn this next item, item 11, we'll turn time over to Galen Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Before you tonight is an interfund loan proposal between the land and water funds of the city. When you had evaluated last year the planned capital replacement for the water fund, it was going to be over a 40-year period. And there's quite a bit of work that needs to be done, and there are some things that can be acted upon quicker if the funding was there to take care of that. As staff looked at options for obtaining some advanced funding, the most efficient and cost-effective means to do that would be to borrow from ourselves and to utilize funds that are in other funds of the city to be able to accomplish some advanced funding of that. State law requires that even though we're borrowing from ourselves, that we treat it as an arm's length transaction that separately identifies components as if you were going to a lender and asking for the funds. So those I've reduced to writing in the analysis section of the report that's been the effective date of the loan would be today, and state law requires that if the loan goes over a one-year period, that it be based upon the equivalent rate of return of a Treasury security. So the 10-year rate for a Treasury security as of this week is 2.85%. And on your desk I gave you an updated amortization schedule so you can take a look at that. The one that was in the packet was from a couple of weeks ago. Rates changed a little bit. They went down, fortunately. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. And so the Water Department and Public Works proposes that $3.8 million be borrowed from the landfill fund by the water fund to accomplish some advanced work that needs to be done with the water system replacements. With the amortization schedule that is before you with a 2.85 rate, this would have certain aspects that are important to note. There's a semi-annual payment involved that is called out in the amortization schedule, and there is no prepayment or early payoff penalties. The majority of the funds will be taken, withdrawn, and utilized almost immediately within just a few months. And it will be utilized to pay the bills that are coming up with that project. And Paul Rowland may have some comment on that a little bit later. It does require in state law that we hold a public hearing to consider this, and so it's my recommendation to the mayor and council that a public hearing be held. And following that public hearing, if the council desires to pass resolution 2018-02 that would bring this about. And I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions before we hold a public hearing?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Please.
Galen, can you just explain to me why the start date of the loan says 1/1 of 2018 instead of the 7/1 when the first payment is due? How does that work?
Let's see, where are you looking?
So on your most recent printout that was on our desk, it just says the start date of the loan says 1/1.
Oh, sorry. I didn't update that piece. It won't affect the payments that will come out. When we first started looking at this, we thought we were going to be drawing the funds down in January, and turned out that we didn't need to draw them that quickly, and so that's the reason why that shows that. It's more for informational sake rather than affecting the payments.
Thanks. I just wondered why, because it started like in essence, it starts in arrears, but
good point.
Gotcha.
Good point.
Thanks. Any other questions? If not, we will open this.
Mr. Mayor,
excuse
me.
Yes.
If I may.
Sure.
Add a little bit of clarification.
Okay.
Galen mentioned the fact that this is going to be used for capital projects, and you will recall that when we did our rate increase a year ago, we did set the rate at a rate that would cover the replacement system over a 40-year period. Mm-hmm. You'll also remember from last year's discussion that our water treatment plant in Mueller Park had reached the end of its useful life and was in need of replacement. This $3.8 million is currently going into the ground right now, 100% for that water treatment plant replacement project. So while we are going to be using our capital money for the water line replacement over the 40 years, this money will be used immediately so that we can get that water treatment plant replaced. They're running a little behind schedule. We had anticipated that they'd be about a month farther along right now, but construction in the winter being what it is, actually construction in the winter was really good. Construction in the spring has been a little bit tougher.
Well,
winter. that's what this money is going to be used 100% for, is the replacement of the Mueller Park water treatment plant.
Thanks, Paul. Is there any further questions to Paul or Galen before we open this to a public hearing? With that, I will open this to a public hearing and invite any of you who are here to come forward and state your name and where you're from, and you're welcome to come forward. Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing and look for action on this item.
Mr. Mayor, I'll be happy to make a motion after I make a speech.
Okay, oh, good.
Is that okay?
Yep.
I just want to thank the council and staff for being willing to look at the stepped-up replacement program. As the staff has found water lines prematurely going bad because of our aggressive soils or electrolysis or whatever, or a poorly designed water treatment plant 30 years ago. Just kidding, Paul. If I can get that one out. How many cities does the engineer get to help design 2 lifetime water treatment plants?
Not often, and in this case, this engineer has been much less involved this time because I have Lloyd, and more importantly, Todd Christensen has been overseeing this project and riding it like a cheap mule. He's been on it hard.
No, it's pretty cool that you're still here, though.
Yeah.
No, but the
really
more
good.
aggressive replacement program,
Yeah.
sincerely, it's going to make a big difference going forward. So, and I'll be happy to make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2018-02.
And look for a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion passes. Thank you very much. Now, for almost to the end of the line, we're gonna invite Alan Johnson to come up and address the council. Thanks, Alan.
Thank you. Appreciate Mayor and Council member. Appreciate being here today to bring these items for your consideration. I will say we did have Power Commission this morning, and all 4 of these items were discussed, and they do come with their recommendation. The first one I've got on the agenda is the replacement of a towable air compressor. We use this piece of equipment when we do our underground wire. We put a conduit in, then we blow a string through at this compressor. We use it if we have to jackhammer the roads or the concrete that Lloyd just got repaired, that we unfortunately do that from time to time. So we get this out quite often when we're using it. The unit that we currently have is about 20 years old, and it's just in time to be replaced. This was a budgeted item. We did go out for bid, and we got 2 good bids. The low bid happened to be the one that had the state bid, which worked doubly well for us. So the Power Commission staff would recommend that we approve the low bid from Cade Equipment Company for $24,140 for this air compressor.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The next one we have is a cable replacement program that we're working on. This one happens to be part of an upgrade that we're working on, a feeder that will tie 2 feeders together to give us some redundancy and also some additional capacity. And what this redundancy allows us to do is if we have a failure in a substation or somewhere down the line, we have the ability to actually do some switching and get people back on while we fix the problem. This is an 1100 MCM cable. It's rated at 7200 volts. You'll find there's only one bidder on here because this is a cable that they've come up with that's actually rated for 600 amps. Typically, when we've had to do that, we've had to put 2 cables in to do it. So this has really been a cost savings for it. Even though it's quite pricey, it's cheaper than putting 2 cables point. So we did go out to bid, and like I say, we did receive one from Okanite. Okanite is a cable we've been using for the last, probably 15 years of success. We've not really had a failure with it. It comes with a 40-year warranty on the cable. Some of the original cable we've talked about before came with this 20-year lifetime, which some has been in the ground 40 years. So it's nice to have one with a warranty for 40 years. So anyway, the Power Commission staff would like to recommend that we purchase this 7,800 feet of 1,100 MCM cable at $7.92 a foot for $61,776.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the bid by Codell Electric for the 1100 URD cable bid with a total cost of cable at $61,776 as presented by staff and as unanimously recommended by the Power Commission.
Second.
Sorry. Second?
Yes.
Did I get that from Richard?
Yeah,
or
but
from
I think someone
Rick?
down there said it first.
Yes.
Chris seconded that. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Alan.
All right, our next item is a project that we're working on, and this has to do with our 138 substation project that we're currently working on, as we've talked about before, where the one transformer was failing. We had to step up the process, and I just might give a quick note that process, in fact, we do have one transformer out of service and the lines and associated, so we are limping along, and we'll be limping along until June, so as we've talked before, but the project is going well. They've got most of the steel removed and the structures. There's a little bit of concrete to come out, so we are in the process of putting things back together, so it's always great to see that when that's happening. But anyway, this fault study helps us when we set relays. It helps us set current capacities. It also helps us determine what our fault capabilities are, the size of breakers we have to have. If something shorts out, we have to have equipment rated to do this. We have contacted ECI, which is the engineering firm that we've been working with, because they've got a lot of our information. This process takes them about 8 weeks to get the modeling done, to put this out and give this out for us. So this is the Power Commission staff's recommendation that we award ECI $58,400 to complete this study and get us upgraded with the southwest substation that we completed and the new 138 transformers that we're putting back in place.
Mayor? Yes.
I'd like to move that we approve the ECI engineering services for the total tone of $58,400.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you again.
All right, the last one I have is kind of an interesting proposal. As we've gone through and we're evaluating our overhead system and have been doing a lot of work. As we started this, a lot of it was really easy to tell. It was very apparent that it was in failure mode, and we've been working as we've worked our way back. We have gone through our 46 system and tested all the poles and identified that we had a number of poles that were either imminent ready to fail or were in bad shape, needed to be repaired. Some of these poles are really in tough situations where, like the one pole I bring as an example is the pole that feeds down into our northeast substation. It's on Davis Boulevard. It's got 246 lines coming in from the north and south and then parallel going to the west. It's also got 2 feeders doing that same thing, so there's a lot of wire. You'll have to take the complete substation off. This is one of those ones that would make sense to put a steel pole in its place when we change it. It also would make sense to do this once we do some additional work that we're going to have to do in that substation. We have others that in order to do this work, we have to shut the line down to do it. Well, with our aggressive 138 project that really will be going on from now until Christmas, we won't be able to do this. So we went out and done some looking, and this Osmos testing company has got a process where they'll come out and they actually do testing, but what they do is they'll come in, if the pole is bad, they'll drive like a steel I-beam down alongside the pole and actually strap it to it, which becomes not as good as new, but it is up there and will withstand the pressures. We've identified 10 of these poles on our 46 system that we think would be candidates to do this, which will buy us a great insurance policy, not just for 6 or 7 months, but it could go multiple years until we get around to rebuilding and doing those sections of line. So this is a kind of a long-term Band-Aid, if you want to call it. So basically we went...
You call it a Band-Aid, but in reality, it is considered by the manufacturer to be a permanent solution.
Absolutely. They consider it as a permanent fix. For us, like I say, when we're going to be looking at it, because some of these poles have aged, we're going to want to be changing them because some of the upper structure needs to be worked, and we'll be changing them out as we go. So Band-Aid was really not a good word.
Yeah, but these will keep keep those poles in good shape until we get to the point where we needed to replace them anyways.
Absolutely. This, like I say, it's a good long-term fix. Like I say, it's not a 1 or 2 or 5 years. I mean, these are 20-year fix on these poles that we're doing it. And we do have several of them that CenturyLink has done them through our system on their poles, and they've been there for a couple of years and seem to be holding up just fine. So it's a great process. So
Great.
in order to do these 10 poles, like I say, they have a price of $21,770. So our commission and the staff's recommendation that we approve the osmosis for those 10 poles.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we award a contract to Osmos Utility Services for pole reinforcement with a total price of $21,770.
Thank you. Seek a second.
Second?
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion passes. Thank you again.
Mayor, could I ask
Alan?
Alan a question before
Sure.
he goes?
Absolutely.
How is our employee that was burned?
He was actually in the office this afternoon. He thinks he's going to be off for another week or 10 days. He's got a severe sunburn. I mean, it's, he's still quite red across his face and his neck. He's still concerned with these wrists there where that meter blew up as he was doing it. But he was very optimistic. He really thinks that he's going to be released, and he feels like that the stuff is growing together. They don't think he's going to have a skin graft on. So we were very fortunate that it was, as bad as it was, it could have been far worse.
Well, tell him he's in our prayers.
Oh, yes. And he's got a great attitude, which was very nice. But like I say, it was great to have him there so I could give you that firsthand report. I visited with him today. So.
Thank you for that report.
Mr. Mayor, I just had a question
Sure,
for Alan
sure.
as well. When you indicated that that the service from this Osmos Utility Service is going to create, in essence, that the poles will have their original structure intact.
Yes.
The poles that are failed versus the poles that are in poor condition, does that change anything?
No. Well, if they're totally failed in the ground, this will fix it. Most of the poles that are rotting off rot about 6 inches below the ground level. So what they have to do is they come in and dig around it and determine that, and then they drill to determine how secure it is. This structure, where they'll put one on both sides, will hold it if it's down in the ground.
Okay.
But what's other thing you get is the weather also affects up on top, where the bolts go through. So if it's starting to fail on the top, this structure won't fix that at all. But as far as what's in the ground, it could be a lifetime fix until the top fails at that point.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
No problem. Appreciate that. I say it was a bad word for Band-Aid. It's a good Band-Aid that's going to last a long time.
Any questions or comments from the council? Thanks.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank
Thanks,
you very
Alan.
much.
With that, unless there's something from staff, I'll look for a motion to adjourn to an RDA meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that motion passes, and City Council is concluded. Yeah, oh, thanks. There you go. I'm surprised you didn't grab that for me.
I didn't.
Just give us 30 seconds and we'll have this recorder changed over.
That's okay. We'll give you 2 minutes. That's okay.
It's probably just going to take us 2 minutes after those 2 minutes, so go ahead.
Okay, done. I'm just kidding.
I'm done.
I got a dirty look.
I will say, while Councilman Knight's out of the room, that, not because he's out of the room, but,
You might want to start over.
Let's talk about him today.
Chat 2.0.
The Utes just advanced to the finals of the.
Wow, they
Yes,
won.
they did. They won, didn't they? Their game, yeah.
It's fantastic.
So that'll be fun.
What would the Pac-12 do without Utah? Bowl win, and their only postseason basketball win this year.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, I read somewhere it says you can't spell pathetic without PAC.
Wow.
Oh, it's like the Pac won right now.
They played Western Kentucky. Chad, what was the score?
69-64.
All right.
Oh, the close game.
Now who do they play?
I don't know. Do you know, Gary?
Don't they have?
I'm not sure.
Don't know who won.
Winner of Penn State, Mississippi State. We just hear from them.
Yeah.
And
Is
just
that
by,
game going on- is that game going on now?
The Penn State?
Yeah.
I don't know.
and just for, by way of background and useless information, I will let you, Western Kentucky will forever have broke my heart because
Wow.
several years ago, the Drake Bulldogs were picked to finish last in the Missouri Valley Comp.
Oh, no.
In the Missouri
Are you
Valley
named after
Conference.
them? Is that how that worked?
Yes. And not only did they not
Awesome.
finish last, they won 18 in a row and finished in the top 15 in the season. And they drew Western Kentucky in the first round. And they were losing by 18 in the first half. They came back, they tied it up, they lost in double overtime by a almost half-court shot.
Wow.
And they've never been good since.
And Des
Oh.
Moines has been crying ever since.
And me.
Okay. With that, welcome everyone to our redevelopment RDA meeting on Tuesday, March 27th, 2018. It's almost 8 o'clock, and we'll, anyway, glad to have everyone here, and first the minutes. All of you had a chance to look over the minutes from our last meeting. Are there any corrections or additions?
Move to approve those as printed.
And second.
Good. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, we will turn time over to you.
Thank you. This item should be fairly quick. If you've read the minutes, this is just a review of what we did back on October 10th. This is a slight modification to an existing RDA loan for the property, the Renaissance Town Center property, Pad A. So the loan will be for construction of the building that was approved last year on this pad. The applicant has requested to change. Well, that's really what we're here for, is instead of using this property as collateral for that loan, they have proposed a portion of this property on the southeast corner. That, just so you can kind of see what the size of that is.
Oh, that's big.
That's just looking to the
I
left
want
of the
that
property
water.
there. Yeah. This is the lot that was proposed. If you have read, hopefully you read your staff report. When you read your staff report, you noted that we had indicated that we needed a little bit more than for collateral. The appraisal for the property included kind of a, I guess what would the word they used was a not hodgepodge. An effective parcel. It's an effective parcel, which included a larger area than just that little lot 19. So this effective area was about 1.3 acres or so. The applicant has proposed that we use the area that you can see, this lot 19 expanded RDA collateral area. That area is about 1.05 acres or so, it's right in that area. It's enough to meet our 75% loan to value ratio. So we've talked through that today. That's the area that the applicant has agreed to use for collateral for that loan. That will again bring us to that 75% loan to value ratio with that parcel being collateralized and encumbered. So the next steps would be if you were to approve this change to the loan, we would then come up with a trust deed that would encumber that ground. We have changed the terms just slightly from your previous approval. And that is that we've shortened the call period. We usually have a 5-year call. We do have a concern about tying up this property too long because this is an area that we want to redevelop as well. The applicants agreed to that shorter call period. I said 3 years. It's a 4-year call instead of a 5-year call. Like I said, the applicant has agreed to that. That'll hopefully free this up a little more quickly. The ultimate plan is to, after the building is built, to roll this into long-term financing anyway. So hopefully that'll occur long before that 4-year call occurs. So with that, we are recommending approval with those revised terms and with this revised collateral.
It's nice we're in first position too.
And we're in first position, which is a big deal. Yeah, it's a good thing.
Thanks. You want to?
Oh, yeah, and thank you. You want to just speak to that, Brian, real quick? There is one other modification that they're requesting. Thanks for reminding me.
So one of the glitches as we've taken this to finance is the entity's cash flows for the loan. So one of the other things we wanted to request is instead of doing it in Renaissance Place, which is the entity building the mixed use, we want to create a new entity for this loan to be under, still either Broadhead or Knowlton or whatever you want, but it would be a single entity LC that owns this lot. And the reasoning for that is the lender does not want it in the entity's, it works in our global cash flow, but it doesn't work in the entity's cash flow until we get our long term. So we would also ask that the entity be a single entity holder for this lot, not Renaissance Place LC, because it's the holder on the other lot. And then it kind of muddies it for the lender.
Okay. That makes sense. Thanks.
Yep.
So we just more or less wanted to get that on the record. That'll be reflected in all the loan documents. Any other questions from the council, from the board?
Good. We'll call for a motion.
I'd like to move that we approve this amended revolving loan application for $550,000 for Brian Knowlton and Renaissance Place.
And a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I abstained from the vote. I just want to disclose that if Mr. Knowlton is the contractor on the project, I hope to be able to bid on the insulation work. So I didn't want to have any part of the discussion or the vote on potential financing.
Thank you for that disclosure.
Thank you.
Just really quick question. Are we going to have to come back and do anything in regards to any name change once they have finalized that ownership structure?
No. By putting this on the record, we've said basically that's what's going to happen. So as we do the loan documents, we'll just make that change.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you. And we'll now have director's report.
This is really fast. Before you have a list of the current revolving loans. We've had a really good luck with the folks that have loans right now all pay on time. You can see we haven't had a late payment for a long time. So we will be adding to that list both from this loan very soon, and also Colonial Square is just about ready to close on that loan that we approved last year. So,
any questions?
How much money do we have left still to lend out?
The fund balance?
Just curious.
I just looked at it, but I don't remember on the top of my head. So we have a pretty good amount still.
But we're good. And,
is it still in the billions?
I figured we were good. So
it's not in the billions, but yeah.
Too bad.
$2.5 million.
Yeah.
So do we have people approaching for various entities to possibly utilize that? Is that
yes?
Right?
Yeah, we have still a lot of interest, and we imagine a couple in the next few months. We hope. So
great.
Cool.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anything from staff? With that, we'll look for a motion to dismiss.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we dismiss this meeting.
Thank you.
Second.
Good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, I didn't say aye. That passes. Thank you.
I will not abstain from that vote.
Yeah. Well, thanks. That was a very, very efficient